What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is The Accountant. The Accountant is an action drama thriller film that was directed by Gavin O'Conner and primarily follows Ben Affleck's character, a prodigy accountant named Christian Wolf with a form of autism that spends a significant amount of time uncooking the books for some of the most dangerous people in the world. However, most people would never suspect Christian does this sort of illegal work because at face value, he's a simple CPA that works at a local Chicago office and leads a seemingly normal life. Well, one day Christian is hired by a robotics company to correct their accounting records over the last 15 years or so, and he uncovers some things he shouldn't have. The rest of the film is spent watching flashbacks of Christian growing up and adapting to the real world with his form of autism, as well as present time where he attempts to fight off mercenaries that were hired to kill him due to what he knows. Okay, so I went into this film with some pretty high expectations because although Ben Affleck didn't direct this one, he's been in a ton of really well done films over the past several years. I saw the awesome cast involved from the trailers that were really well done, and I thought this movie was a slam dunk to be on the same level of the 2014 film Gone Girl. But I left that theater last night very disappointed because while this film does have some nice things going for it, it's mostly a mess. Not a complete disaster or anything, but just very sloppy. I'll start by saying that what you were shown in the trailers is not really what you get in the full-length film. You know how they talk about how Christian deals with dangerous clientele in the trailers? Well, he does, but you barely ever get to see it. He supposedly deals with drug cartels and mafias and so forth, and it would have been really interesting to watch him interact with these groups while he pulls off his accounting miracles. But nope, none of that is ever explored ever, partially due to the fact that a robotics company sends killers after him because, well, I'm still not entirely sure really. There's a lot of plot points that push the story along that either don't add up, feel pretty unrealistic, or just didn't make any sense. There's points where a character will jump from point A to point B based on certain logic, where I was just like, wait, what? How did you get there? The pacing is also very off as well. The story is told out of order because the filmmakers want you to see how Christian became the man he is today and how he ended up in the business of secret accounting, I guess you would call it. But the issue is that you'll randomly get hit with backstory scenes that explain very little about what's going on in the present, and this ultimately just ends up as a heavy-handed attempt to provide backstory to a lead character that we know very little about. And then when you actually get action sequences besides the climax of the film, they're very brief and not particularly well done, and they're just thrown into random spots but they don't really feel like they fit. There's also other scenes where I just didn't understand the situation and why our characters were even in the positions they were in. Not much about this story is ever explained in a way that feels coherent, and I just found myself confused in regards to how the story was progressing and what made our characters who they are. There are several scenes with young Christian, played by Seth Lee, that attempt to explain just what effect Christian's form of autism has played on his personality and everyday routine and so forth. The problem is that Seth Lee and Ben Affleck's interpretations of Christian are so out of sync that they feel like two entirely different people. Obviously, one's a young boy and one's a man, and everyone grows and changes as they mature. I get that, but these two don't even feel like the same person. They are so vastly different that it was mind-boggling. And the worst part is that you never get an explanation as to how Christian got his outbursts and issues mostly under control. He just does, and you have to accept it because of reasons. So I will say this, I did enjoy the acting performances for the most part, although the actors didn't actually have much chemistry with one another on screen. So Ben Affleck and Anna Kendrick's character Dana Cummings sort of kind of have this romantic connection, but not really because Christian can't seem to relate to others very well. And the connection between the two characters did feel very forced and unnatural. Anna Kendrick's character is funny and charming like she is in every role, but her character had very little identity to her because of how she was written. She's also not even in the movie very much either. On the topic of not in the movie very much, J.K. Simmons is in this movie for a total of like 5 minutes, and while he does shine in the role of Agent Ray King, you barely get to see him do anything relevant to the story being told. He feels like an outsider in this movie, and while he and his partner Mary Beth, played by Cynthia Addai-Robinson, attempt to track down Christian Wolf, they both just sit idly by while all the important stuff seems to happen elsewhere. I like both their performances, but when the two interact, there's not much that actually worked for me personally. J.K. Simmons goes on this backstory rant near the tail end of the film for like 5 minutes, and it is very heavy-handed and out of nowhere and just shoved into the movie forcefully where it doesn't fit at all. The two barely even know each other, and they're just sitting there, and J.K. Simmons decides to share his whole backstory, and I'm just like, why are you doing this now? Is it because we don't know anything about your character and the movie's almost over? That's the reason, isn't it? Another really good actor who's barely in this movie is Jon Bernthal, who plays Brax the Assassin. He really nailed his role, but he too is just not in the movie all that much. He has like maybe 4 to 5 scenes and that's it. There's a lot of really good actors in this film, but the impact they have on the story at times feels minimal. I will, however, say that I love the cinematography in this movie. From a purely visual perspective, I was impressed with how things looked on screen. This is another movie that attempts to build around the the characters, so the key is emphasizing their expressions in an attempt to highlight their individuality. And while I didn't feel like I 100% knew the characters, the cinematography more than did its part. And as I said, the explosive climax of the film was fairly satisfying, I'd say. There's a couple of John Wick-like scenes in this film, and the climax is the best example of that because of how quickly things get violent and crazy. But overall, I was really disappointed with The Accountant, and I think there's a ton of missed potential in this movie. I did think it had some nice acting performances and a good cast, strong cinematography, and an explosive climax. However, I also felt the story was a bit scatterbrained, the characters were very underdeveloped, the dialogue was mostly poor, and the pacing was all over the place. I'm gonna give The Accountant a 6 out of 10 and recommend you pass on this one in theaters unless you love the actors involved and have to see them on the big screen. So did you guys see The Accountant yet? What did you think of it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if not, let me know whether you'd be interested in watching this film or not. And as always, if you like this video, click that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for much more content like this. That's all for now though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.